Hey everyone, so once again, the hacks at the CBC, those people who, they're supposed to be there to properly inform, educate, enlighten you to the social and economic issues of the day in the country of Canada. That's literally the point of having this billion-dollar crown corporation, this quasi-arm of the government, this taxpayer funded, well, I mean, not like you get to choose to, not like you get to opt in or opt out. You're forced to pay for the CBC. But the whole point, obviously, is to properly educate and inform you. But as you're seeing, no, that's not happening, folks. It's not happening. And why? Because they know how to play politics. To manipulate, to distort, and to misinform, but in a manner that's subtle enough that you'll think you'll have some kind of perception or believe that, hey, I'm getting news, which, like I say, to some degree, in some aspect you are. But without someone giving you the ability or the capacity or doing the hard work for you, because, I mean, you can do it as well. Like, that's the other thing. Where the media lacks, you can try to make up and compensate for that, but it is very difficult, I'll admit. So not everyone can do it, which is why the media is supposed to take that task and responsibility. But as I've learned over the course of my life is, don't rely on other people for everything unless, well, you can, but at least check and verify. At least make sure that the people that you trust or that you rely on for your information or your education, you should at least take the personal task, the personal responsibility of making sure that they're doing it properly. Once again, personal responsibility, a little bit goes a long way. This in reference to the jobs report, the latest jobs report for July. Headline out of CBC News Business: Canadian economy added 54,000 jobs in July, mostly part-time. Unemployment rate ticks down to 5.8%. So, I mean, at least in the headline this time, you are getting at least a little semblance of where they're saying, well, okay, Canada did add these jobs, but hey, at least they're pointing out that a lot of them were part-time. So I guess a little bit of truth there. So I guess some kudos for at least the headline being conducive to at least making people want to read on further. Because as we know, a part-time job just doesn't, if you lose a full-time job and gain a part-time job, well, unless that part-time job pays a whole lot more than your full-time job, chances are that's lost economic opportunity. That's lost income. And that's a net negative result for most people as far as economics goes. They might gain more time for social activities and could be conceived or perceived as being positive. But economically, usually if you go from a full-time job to a part-time job, that means a loss of economic opportunity or of economic purchasing power or economic activity. But let's listen to how it actually unfolds when you listen to the numbers broken down in a more reasonable manner that at least, and once again I'm going to give a little kudos here, is at least it is contained within the body of this article. So once again, Canadians, the onus is on you. If the information is there, don't just don't read the headline. Go on there and read this stuff so that you can be properly informed, because sometimes the media will do that, but they also know a lot of people don't want to. That's why that headline matters so much for political messaging. The Canadian economy added about 54,000 new jobs last month, causing the jobless rate to fall 0.2 of a percentage point to 5.8%. Statistics Canada said Friday that the economy added 82,000 part-time jobs, but that figure was offset by a loss of 28,000 full-time positions. Now, here's the part that I think is actually the most important aspect of this whole jobs revelation and the numbers contained within it. The public sector added 49,600 new jobs, while the private sector added only 5,200 positions. So, and think about it. How do government employees get paid? By the taxation, by the income that they confiscate from the private sector. So if the private sector is not adding much for jobs, but the public sector, the parasitical class, have it in spades to the tune of what, 10 times? Well, how are you going to pay for that? Like I say, if the private sector is the one got to pay for all this stuff, How you going to do it when you got minimal economic activity in the private sector, but massive amounts of economic activity in the public? It's obviously unsustainable, folks. And how much you want to bet a lot of these public sector jobs are a direct consequence, a direct result of what I put out and pointed out in the past. All this mass influx of whether it's illegal migrants, illegal migrants, all this bureaucracy. Hey, the marijuana file, right? The so-called legalization, as they call it, but in reality, it's not legalization. It's government takeover of an industry, or an attempted takeover of an entire industry. But yeah, lots of bureaucracy, lots of fucking government workers will get involved and have to be part of that whole collective endeavor, right? So once again, the parasites, the authoritarians, the collectivists, those who promote forced income or wealth redistribution, yeah, a lot of them are benefiting tremendously from, you know, this quasi-fascist socialist regime, the Trudeau liberals. But the average taxpayer, the average taxpayers, yeah, you're losing out, folks. You're losing out big time. You're not getting any chunk or any slice of that pie, or it's so small that, yeah, it's not enough to sustain you for 5 minutes, never mind for the day or for the evening or till your next meal. No. If you had to live off this, well, you'd die tomorrow or shortly thereafter. And what we're seeing too, if you look at the chart, is the actual participation rate is dropping off once again. So that's less people participating in the economy overall, but way more in the public sector. Once again, folks, unsustainable and a completely disconnect from what it is to be, you know, someone that has any perception or belief that you live in some kind of free society where everything's done through market forces and voluntary trade interactions. Yeah. No. The government, folks, you know, the central planning hacks and those who cozy up or they carry favor for, or the conformists, yeah, they're benefiting, and they have been benefiting for a decade now since the economic crash, you know, the Great Recession. It's been the connected class, the ruling class, and the cronies. Those are the people that have been greatly benefiting. The average Canadian, no, you're just fighting to keep your head above water. I know, because I hear it from many out there. And it's a rough and raw deal. And I'm on your side, because I have a tremendous amount of respect for those who don't look out or seek to have some kind of position, you know, or being part of the collective gang that is the government, that is the public sector. If you're doing it out there all on your own as a private sector or as an individual in Canada that has nothing to do with cronyism or the public sector, kudos to you. You're amazing. You're the people that I have, like I say, tremendous amount of respect for, because you're the one that's carrying the burden, the heavy load constantly. And you're doing it most of the time I see out there without much of a complaint, without barely or nary a whimper. Now, I'm not saying that you should, you know, not be a productive member of society, but you should have, at the very least, be willing to push back against this kind of stuff and put the government back in its place. You know, make sure that they're not the ones that are benefiting most from your productive wealth, your productive income, or your productive labors. Make sure you and those you care about are the ones that are truly benefiting, first and foremost. Now, I'll post a link to this article in the description of the video below. I'm not going to read anymore. Like I say, that basically the most important information is contained within the first few paragraphs or first few sentences of this article. And it's showing you that no, the Canadian economy, it's doing great if you're, like I say, part of the connected class, right? Part of the elitists, part of the collectivists, part of the cult of government. But the rest of us, nah, not seeing it so much, are you? And I know you, like me, probably getting really sick and tired of carrying all that weight, carrying that heavy burden, while these other people get to, you know, live life seemingly so easily without having to put a whole lot of hard work and effort into being a good, genuine, decent, moral, productive member of society. You know, they just gotta, like I say, they just gotta cozy up to their political masters, and they're treated like kings and queens. They get to trample all over you, the tax serf, the tax slave in Canada. This is Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.